Insiders are pointing to a deliberate campaign orchestrated by Jimmy Haslam to shift focus toward Shedeur Sanders. Every analyst suddenly talking about Sanders' readiness. Every comment downplaying Gabriel's clutch struggles. All of it feels too aligned to be coincidence. The Browns haven't announced a new starter, but the writing's on the wall, and the eraser is already on Gabriel's name. This orchestrated pivot highlights how teams can reshape legacies before a player even takes the field. In Sanders' case, the Browns are building the myth in real time, praising his potential, minimizing concerns, and gradually repositioning him as the solution without formally admitting a problem. Gabriel, once the hopeful starter, is now being publicly outpaced by a quarterback whose rise is as much about perception as performance. Haslam's hand is all over it, and the plan isn't to wait. It's to take control of the narrative now and make Sanders the future before the season demands it. The Cleveland Browns are making moves. Quiet, intentional, behind-the-scenes moves, but they're happening. And at the center of it all, Shedeur Sanders. Let's be clear, this isn't just another rookie waiting in the wings. This is a full-scale internal shift orchestrated from the top down. Multiple insiders are now pointing to what looks more and more like a deliberate strategy, one crafted by none other than Jimmy Haslam.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
To build Shedeur into the Browns' next starting quarterback. And it's not happening in some distant developmental timeline. It's happening now. Slowly, methodically, but unmistakably. Every leak, every shift in media tone, every pointed critique of Dillon Gabriel is part of it. This is about shaping a narrative, controlling the message, laying the groundwork so that when the Browns do hand Shedeur the reins, it feels like the natural next step, because they've already convinced everyone it is. From the outside, it might look subtle, but the signs are all there. The Browns have been shifting perception around Shedeur, reframing the conversation to emphasize his potential, his composure, his readiness. The same media that once barely mentioned him is now pushing out sound bites that paint him as not just prepared, but deserving. He's not just a future option. He's being treated like a rising cornerstone. And this pivot didn't just happen overnight. It started with small things, internal evaluations, quiet praise from coaches, then escalated to strategic leaks. Those leaks are now fueling speculation that Shedeur's time could come sooner than expected. But this isn't speculation for the sake of drama. This is direction, a calculated shift in how the team wants the public and the locker room to view their quarterback future. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel is still in the starting role. But for how long? Because while Shedeur's name rises, Gabriel's stock is steadily dropping. Analysts like Mary Kay Cabot and others are now openly questioning his poise under pressure, his decision-making in tight moments, his ability to close out games. And after the Browns' recent loss, the criticism didn't just come from fans, it came from everywhere. That post-game scrutiny hit hard, not just because of the performance, but because of what it revealed. Gabriel may not have the full trust of a locker room anymore. And the silence from the organization afterward? Deafening. No public backing. No reassurances. Just space. The kind of space that allows doubt to grow and another narrative to move in. Enter Shedeur. This isn't just about the box score. This is about projection, about perception. And the Browns are making it crystal clear. They're projecting a future that doesn't include Gabriel leading the way. At best, he's a stopgap. At worst, he's already being phased out. The Browns' long-term vision has always been shaky at quarterback. Years of rotation, failed signings, and public missteps have left the franchise desperate for something, someone, to finally stick. And now, all their chips appear to be sliding in Shedeur's direction. The effort to groom him goes beyond the field. It's narrative shaping, image building, creating a platform where his leadership can eventually take hold without pushback. That means Gabriel's struggles aren't just bad timing. They're a green light, and the team is already acting on it. Reports say the Browns are evaluating backup options, not because they don't trust Shedeur, but because they do. They want to protect him when the time comes. They want a safety net, someone who can carry the load if Shedeur has early struggles. That's not something you prepare for if your current starter is locked in. That's what you do when you're already planning the next chapter. This isn't reckless. It's measured. And it's happening in phases. First, boost Shedeur's public image. Done. Second, create a soft landing for a potential transition. In progress. Third, allow Gabriel to falter on his own. No interference. Just wait. Let the pressure mount. Let the questions linger. Let the fans start asking for Shedeur before the team even makes the move. That way, when it happens, the organization looks responsive, not manipulative. And that's exactly what Haslam wants. Control without backlash. Transition without drama. A seamless handoff that's already been rehearsed behind closed doors. But it's a gamble. Because for all the talk of readiness, Shedeur still hasn't taken a real NFL snap in a starting role. He hasn't faced the pressure that comes with carrying a franchise. The Browns are betting big that he'll rise to the moment, but if he stumbles, the whole operation could backfire. The narrative they've worked so hard to shape could collapse overnight. That's the risk. But it's a risk the front office is clearly comfortable with. And make no mistake, this plan doesn't happen in a vacuum. The team is acutely aware of what this does to morale, what it does to Gabriel's confidence, what it signals to the rest of the locker room. But they've weighed it. They know the psychological toll, and they're willing to absorb it. Because they believe in Shedeur. That belief is driving everything. The internal evaluations, the narrative shifts, the subtle distancing from Gabriel. It's all part of the same story. A new era is being ushered in, and Shedeur is the face of it. The clock on Gabriel isn't just ticking, it's almost out. And yet, this isn't being framed as a quarterback controversy. That would imply it's still up for debate. It's not. Not internally. The only question now is when, not if. The Browns don't want to rush it, but they also don't want to wait too long. Every shaky performance by Gabriel makes the decision easier to justify. And with the media already pushing the narrative, the groundwork is basically done. So what's next? The Browns will keep watching. They'll give Gabriel just enough rope to either prove them wrong or prove them right. If he turns things around dramatically, it buys time. But if the trend continues and the performance stays uneven, the team won't hesitate. Shedeur will step up, and the story they've been slowly crafting will snap into place. No panic, no scramble, just execution. That's what makes this situation different from past quarterback dramas. It's not reactive. It's not chaotic. It's strategic. This is how the Browns are operating now, with a long-term plan built on calculated risk and full narrative control. And Shedeur Sanders is the centerpiece of that plan. So if you're still wondering what the Browns are doing with their quarterback room, stop. It's already happening. You're just watching it unfold in real time. Gabriel may still be on the field, but the real action is happening off it. The Browns have chosen their direction, and they're not looking back. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the Browns are making the right call by positioning Shedeur Sanders as the future? Or are they risking too much by sidelining Dillon Gabriel before he's had a real chance to prove himself? And if you want more deep dive breakdowns into the NFL's biggest behind-the-scenes moves and quarterback power plays, don't forget to subscribe. Because this quarterback saga in Cleveland, it's only just beginning. The Browns know exactly what they're doing. They're not flailing. They're not panicking. They're engineering. Behind closed doors, Jimmy Haslam and the upper brass are building a transition plan so calculated, so narrative-controlled, that by the time Shedeur Sanders takes the field, it won't even feel like a change. It'll feel like the answer. And Dillon Gabriel? He's just collateral. That's the harsh truth. In this business, perception often outweighs performance. Gabriel hasn't bottomed out, but he's faltered in just enough key moments to trigger doubt. Missed throws in crunch time. Inability to close tight games. Measured, not magnetic. And when the pressure's on, he fades, not fights. It's not a disaster, but that's exactly the point. If Gabriel had completely collapsed, this would be easier. The team could bench him with justification. Fans would demand it. The media would applaud it. But because he's just good enough, it complicates things. And that's why the Browns are playing this slow, quiet game of replacement. They're not looking for justification. They're creating it. Step 1. Undermine subtly. Start highlighting Gabriel's shortcomings, not with rage, but with analysis. Calm, pointed observations from analysts like Mary Kay Cabot and others. He struggles to execute late in games. He lacks pocket awareness under pressure. These aren't attacks, they're chess moves. Just enough to plant seeds. Step 2. Build the alternative. Shedeur Sanders doesn't need to be declared a star. He just needs to be seen as ready, capable, steady. Public praise from insiders, leaked optimism from behind the scenes, soft media segments about his work ethic, maturity, and leadership qualities. See what's happening? They're not throwing shade, they're shifting light. It's a framing device. And when done right, it's devastatingly effective. Because when you shine just enough light on the future, the present starts to look dull in comparison. That's where Gabriel sits now. Dull. Disposable. A bridge quarterback in a league that burns those faster than it builds them. And yet, he's still on the field. Still in the locker room. Still putting on the uniform and walking into each week like it's still his job. But it's not. Not really. Not anymore. Every snap he takes is a countdown. And the locker room feels it too. Because when management starts building around someone else, players notice. When the coaching staff begins tailoring drills for a backup, when the narrative shifts mid-season, guys pay attention. Trust shifts. Leadership fractures. Loyalty bends toward the future, not the fading. That's the risk. Not the quarterback change itself, but what the process does to team chemistry. If you're not careful, you don't just lose a starter, you lose the locker room. But the Browns? They're not afraid. Because this time, they believe the reward outweighs the risk. They believe Shedeur Sanders isn't just ready physically. He's ready to lead. To be marketed. To be the guy. And if you're wondering why all of this is happening so publicly, yet so carefully, it's because they've learned. Cleveland's quarterback history is a mess of overhyped debuts, rushed decisions, and front office chaos. Now for once, they're trying to get ahead of the curve instead of being buried by it. This isn't just about football. It's about optics. About stability. About finally establishing a QB identity that doesn't have an expiration date. That's what Shedeur represents to them. Not a Band-Aid. A brand. That's why Jimmy Haslam is involved. He doesn't just want wins. He wants momentum. A narrative. A future he can sell to fans, media, sponsors, and himself. Shedeur gives him that. Gabriel? He doesn't. You can feel the difference. And this is where things get even messier. Because for all the PR control and calculated messaging, the Browns are walking a razor-thin line. If Gabriel suddenly pulls together a string of strong performances, dominant, undeniable, late-game heroics, the plan starts to crack. You can't pull a winning quarterback. Not without backlash. Not without fracture. So they're hoping he doesn't. Not openly, of course. No one will say it. But behind closed doors, they're ready for the moment when Gabriel proves them right. When he throws that red zone interception. When he fumbles that 2-minute drill. When he stares down a blitz and takes the sack instead of making a play. Because that is when they strike. That's when the switch doesn't feel forced. It feels earned. That's when the press conference is easy. The messaging is clear. We've decided to make a change to give the team the best chance to win. It's cliché, safe, boring. But beneath it, months of planning, narrative shifting, trust redistribution, and Shedeur steps into a role that's already been tailored for him. The coaches know. The players know. The media knows. This was never Gabriel's team. Not really. It was a placeholder, a setup, an interim chapter in a story that's already been drafted and waiting for print. The Browns don't want short-term flash. They want sustainable success. And for once, they're doing it the smart way. Carefully. Patiently. But make no mistake, they are doing it. And Shedeur? He doesn't even need to be perfect. He just needs to be good enough. To stabilize the narrative. To prove that the preparation wasn't just hype. If he delivers even average performances with poise and confidence, the Browns will spin that as proof of concept, growth, future, foundation. Because once the decision is made, the narrative moves fast. It doesn't matter that Gabriel might have had more left in the tank, that he didn't crash and burn. What matters is that Shedeur is the one the Browns believe in. And once that belief becomes public, there's no going back. This is how careers end quietly. Not with a benching in prime time. Not with a brutal headline. But with a shrug. A reallocation of reps. A change in body language from teammates. A few less questions in the press room. One day, you're QB1. The next, you're holding a clipboard, wearing a hat, answering questions about how you're supporting the team. And in your place, a quarterback whose entire arc has been patiently constructed, start to finish, to look like destiny. That's what the Browns are doing right now. They're writing a future, and they've already decided who the star is. So when it happens, when Shedeur Sanders walks out for his first start, don't act surprised. Don't ask why. Don't wonder how. Just understand, this was never about one bad game or one good practice. This was a blueprint, a long play, a move crafted not in response to chaos, but in preparation for change. The Browns are turning the page. And the next chapter? It has Shedeur's name all over it. Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for his moment to arrive. The Browns are making it for him. And Dillon Gabriel? He's standing in the middle of the room, watching the lights dim, still clutching the mic, while the crew quietly builds a new stage behind him. Let's be blunt. The Browns aren't handling this the way most teams would. They're not staging a quarterback controversy in public. They're not sparking locker room division with vague coach quotes. And they're certainly not throwing Gabriel under the bus. That's not the move here. They're doing something far more polished, and honestly, far more ruthless. They're pulling off the most calculated quarterback transition in recent Browns history. They're not firing Gabriel. They're fading him out. Every move they've made, every shift in tone, every media leak, every careful elevation of Shedeur's image points to one thing. The transition is already in motion. The Browns just haven't announced it yet. Because they don't need to. When the narrative is working this well, you let it do the heavy lifting for you. And the narrative is working. What started as a few murmurs, Sanders looks sharp in practice, coaches are impressed by his preparation, has now evolved into full-blown framing. The Browns are painting Shedeur as the long-term solution, the calm after the quarterback storm, the guy with both the talent and the temperament to lead this franchise into the future. And while that picture is being painted in soft, optimistic tones, Gabriel's portrait is being slowly erased. Again, this isn't because Gabriel has fallen apart. He hasn't. But the Browns don't need a total collapse to justify a change. All they need is a trend. And right now, the trend is clear. Gabriel hasn't inspired confidence in high-pressure moments. He's been shaky in late-game situations. He hasn't cemented himself as the guy. And in the NFL, not terrible is just another way of saying replaceable. That's the box Gabriel is in now. The placeholder. The bridge quarterback. And bridges, as we know, are meant to be crossed and then left behind. So here we are. Gabriel is still technically the starter, still taking reps, still going through the motions. But the franchise's attention, energy, and focus have already pivoted elsewhere. Shedeur is being talked about like he's next in line, not because of some wild media speculation, but because the team is actively shaping that reality. They've made it clear without ever having to say it. Insiders close to the organization are reporting that management, especially Jimmy Haslam, is working to clear any lingering doubts about Sanders' readiness. That they're carefully crafting a positive narrative, even rehabilitating his public image where needed, to prime fans and the media for the eventual shift. This is not a team hedging its bets. This is a team moving. And they're moving with precision. Let's not pretend the media commentary around this is spontaneous, either. When respected voices like Rex Ryan start openly suggesting that Shedeur could take over sooner than later, it's not random. That's not just opinion, it's signal boosting. When a national analyst drops that take, it's because people in the building are letting it be known that the winds are shifting. And once that idea is out there, it changes the game. Suddenly, Gabriel's every move is viewed through a different lens. A drop pass? A red zone stall? A delayed throw? All of it now serves the bigger story, why he might be replaced. He's no longer being graded on his own progress. He's being measured against an alternate future the team is already building in real time. That's the weight of being a lame duck quarterback. No matter how well you play, it's never enough to beat a storyline the organization has already bought into. And right now, that storyline is crystal clear. Shedeur Sanders is the future of the Cleveland Browns. Now let's talk risk, because there's always a gamble with moves like this. If the team miscalculates, if Shedeur isn't as ready as they think, if the transition happens too early, if the locker room doesn't respond well, it could create a whole new wave of instability. And let's not forget, this is Cleveland. This city knows quarterback chaos better than most franchises know their own playbooks. But this time, the Browns are betting that they've finally figured it out. That with the right rollout, the right internal grooming, the right control of the narrative, they can land this move cleanly. They're not throwing Shedeur into the fire. They're building a runway for him. They're surrounding him with support, shaping expectations, and waiting for the precise moment when the public, the locker room, and the front office are all on the same page. That's when it happens. That's when the team announces the change, not as a desperate pivot, but as a confident step forward. That's the goal. And all signs point to it being close. Not months away. Not some distant idea. We're talking weeks, maybe less, depending on how things unfold. The Browns know this can't drag on. The longer Gabriel stays in the role, without delivering game-changing results, the more pressure builds. Not just on him, but on the coaching staff, the front office, and even Sanders himself. Everyone starts watching a little more closely. Every loss feels heavier. Every press conference gets tighter. That's not sustainable. And the Browns know it, which is why they're likely planning for the break in the story. The turning point. A loss bad enough to justify the switch, or a moment where Gabriel simply can't defend his performance anymore. That's when they'll strike. Not with chaos, but with confidence. The message will be simple. We're turning the page. And most people, they'll accept it. Because by then, the Browns will have already sold the idea. They've been selling it for weeks. Conditioning everyone for the transition. Letting Shedeur's name quietly grow louder, while Gabriel fades into the background. That's how you do it. You don't force a quarterback change, you stage it. And that's exactly what's unfolding right now in Cleveland. So where does this leave us? It leaves us standing in the middle of a team in motion. A quarterback room in transition. A franchise that has finally stopped reacting and started planning. And it leaves Dillon Gabriel in the toughest spot in the NFL. QB1 on paper, but QB2 in the eyes of the future. Unless he pulls off something remarkable, something undeniable, his time is running out. And the Browns aren't going to wait much longer. They've already picked their direction. They've already picked their quarterback. All that's left is the announcement. So what do you think? Is this a masterclass in narrative control, or are the Browns jumping the gun and risking another quarterback reset? Should Gabriel be given more time, or is it time to let Shedeur show what he's made of? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if you want the real story behind every power play, pivot, and quarterback coup happening in the NFL. Because this Shedeur Sanders takeover, it's not just a rumor. It's happening. And you'll want to be here when it does.